Have you ever had challenges getting over shame and guilt? I'm going to share with you the secrets to getting over shame and guilt. What's the difference between the two? And how you can delineate between personal abandonment, things that cause personal abandonment in your life. I'm going to share with you those three things and what that has to do with shame and guilt, and how you can have the psychological wherewithal, the awareness, and the tools and the strategies, psychological strategies, so that you don't have to feel shame ever again. Are you ready for that? If it's the first time you're tuning in here, my name is Ron John. I'm the author of Relationships 101. I'm the head trainer at Great Relationships University. I've been a dating relationships consultant for over a decade, and former professional dominatrix, and I own the number one tantra therapy in Las Vegas, and I think the US. And so, why is it a big problem for you that you feel shame? Shame, it really deteriorates your ability to communicate with people confidently. It really deteriorates your psychology. You're feeling good about yourself when you feel shame. So you've never actually had the tool to get over shame. You just recognized, or you just thought that it's something that you live with, right? You've never actually had the tool or the mindset to get over what it actually is. You want clarity on what it is. And when you have clarity on what it is, you know how not to have it, how to get over it, much, much easier. I want you to recognize that there are people that have challenges with tremendous shame in their life. And they carry it all throughout their life, all throughout their childhood, all the way up to their adulthood. And some people never get over the feeling of shame. Why is that? And how can you have clarity so that you know how to get over that? Even a little bit of shame or a lot of shame. And what does it have to do with what other people think of you and what society that you grew up in has to do with shame? And you're acquiring and inheriting this shame. I want you to really pay attention to those words that I've mentioned. Inheriting that shame is a pretty powerful one. It's a pretty powerful paradigm. So now let's go over this paradigm shift. After watching this video, you're going to know how to get over shame, and you're going to have a paradigm shift, a different perspective of the world, where you can't see, I want you to pay attention to this, you can't see yourself becoming shamed or shameful again after watching this video. What is the difference between shame and guilt? This is an important one. Shame is the distress and discomfort and the humiliation that you feel when you've recognized a wrongdoing. It's very simple, right? It's the humiliation and the distress and the discomfort from recognizing a wrongdoing, when you recognize you've done something wrong or you've done something against your moral codes or ethical codes. Ethical codes, remember, are the rules in which you join into when you join a specific group, such as the group of doctors, or the ethics of doctors, ethics of nurses, ethics of business, ethics of friends, any group you join into. Morals are those standards in which you grow up in. They're already there when you grew up in it, and you just inherited it. And so shame is the pain and distress and the humiliation that you feel when you recognize a wrongdoing or an unethical behavior or an immoral behavior. So what is guilt? What is the difference between the two? Guilt is the recognition or admission of a wrongdoing. The recognition or admission of a wrongdoing. What's the difference between shame and guilt? If you paid attention to the definition, the only difference was with shame, shame is actually guilt with the added emotion of humiliation, distress, and discomfort. Humiliation, distress, and discomfort. So what's the difference between the two? You can have guilt without shame. You can have guilt with shame and be shamed with that guilt, or you can have guilt with absolutely no shame. Because guilt is merely the recognition or the admission. You recognize that you've done something wrong. And you needn't feel any shame by doing something wrong. You understand? If you did something immoral or unethical, you can feel guilty over it. In other words, you can take responsibility over it. Guilt is tantamount to taking responsibility for a wrongdoing. That is what guilt is. It's a recognition, the admission. You admit, or you take responsibility that, yes, I did this wrong thing. And you didn't feel shame for it. You can have guilt without shame. You understand? So shame is merely the addition of humiliation, distress, and discomfort from recognizing or admission this guilt or admitting or taking responsibility for this wrongdoing. And so how do you get rid of the discomfort and the distress and the humiliation from it? You only feel these things because you have an ego. And your ego's sole purpose, now I'm not going to go dive too much into the ego. If you want to learn more about the ego, we do a whole 4-hour training on personal psychology at Great Relationships University. Just visit www.greatrelationshipsu.com. So before I go over how you can get over shame and guilt, let's tie it into what's personal abandonment. There are 3 themes that's going on right now in your mind that you grew up with that are themes of personal abandonment. Do you understand? There are things that you're thinking right now, things that you live by. You live by them, but they are actually themes of personal abandonment. What is personal abandonment? Personal abandonment is when you abandon your sense of self in exchange so that you can appease other people, or you can appease anything else outside of appeasing yourself. You abandon yourself, you abandon your sense of self. It might make more sense when I go over them. So what are the 3 themes of personal abandonment that you grew up with and live by for the most part? They are fitting in, growing up, and settling down. Those sound familiar to you? Have you ever been told you need to fit in, or you should fit in? You ever been told you need to grow up? Have you ever been told you should just settle down? Those are 3 themes of personal abandonment. Why? Fitting in is abandoning what you perceive for yourself is the right thing for you as a specific individual that you are, so that you can join into the crowd, join into the standard and the rules that other people have created for you, so that you can blend in and fit in and acquiesce to, so that other people will like you. That is what fitting in entails. What is growing up? Growing up is personal abandonment in the sense that you should abandon your childlike curiosity and childlike wonders and your childlike perceived behaviors and become a grown-up. Now, I don't know if you've ever heard me say this, but there's a distinction between a grown-up and an adult. Do you know what that distinction is? A grown-up is someone who has grown up, someone who, when you were a child, you looked at this authority figure and you say, wow, that person's a grown-up. I want to be like them. Every kid wants to be grown up because they think that that grown-up is free and they can do whatever they want, whether or not responsibility is involved. They can just do whatever they want, and they know everything. When you were a kid, you just want to know everything, and you want to just grow up and do whatever you want. What's the difference between a grown-up and an adult? An adult is someone who is a grown-up who also recognizes that you can do anything you take responsibility over, you gain autonomy over. You become free when you take responsibility. Responsibility equals authority. Anything you take authority over, you have responsibility over. And anything you take responsibility over, you can have authority over. And they also recognize that you don't have to leave behind your childlike behaviors, your childlike wonder, your childlike curiosity, and you don't know everything. In fact, when you're an adult, you recognize that there are a lot more things that you don't know. The more and more you learn about more things, the longer you live, the more you recognize that there's much more things you don't know than there are things you know. And so you have this open mindset of recognizing, I will utilize my childlike behaviors, my childlike wonders, and my childlike play. So I don't take things so seriously as to not take them lightly. And recognizing that just like playing games, you try something and you fail, and then you try it again, and you fail, you try it again, just like playing a game. And then you get better and better, and you get further and further in stages in the game. The third theme of personal abandonment is settling down. Settling down is a personal abandonment in the sense that rather than pursue the things that you want in life, creating the successes that you want in life, the attempts after attempts despite your failures, settling down is a sense that it's not going to be better, it's not going to get any better than this. You might as well just settle down. Do the things that we told you to do. Do the things that is a standard behavior for most of us, which is you go to school, get good grades, get a good job, and then you settle down. Settling down, fitting in, and growing up are all themes of personal abandonment. You don't need to fit in. You don't need to abandon what you believe is right and true and moral and ethical and what you think is good for you. There are many things that are good for different individuals that doesn't apply to anybody else. What is good for you? You remember when we talked about reason confidence? Anything that you can reason, you can check. It feels good for you. It's ethical for you. It's moral, and it's logically sound. It sounds good. You follow it down its logical conclusion. It makes sense, and it's something that works out. You can be completely confident whether or not you fit in the society in which you live. Remember, I'll give you how to get over that in a minute here. And you don't need to settle down. You can continue pursuing. Settling down is just a notion of you abandoning yourself. Do the things that you like in your life, pursue the things that you'd want, and make the arrangements in the situations that you're in, and take care of it take care of things when things happen. And growing up, the more and more responsibility you take, the more authority and autonomy you have. And you recognize that you never need to leave behind your childlike curiosity, wonder, and playfulness. You've never seen me as someone who takes things much too seriously. I take things very sincerely. You recognize that I'm a person who takes things very sincerely, but doesn't take things very seriously. And if you follow me long enough, you'll recognize this, and you've watched any of my stories. So what's my call to action for you today? Number one is recognize that in order for you to win the game of life, you must play by your own rules. Here's why. Playing the game, and this is an important game. This is a game, and that is the game of life. That playing by the rules that other people have set for you in this game of life ensures that you don't win the game of life. So you must play by your own rules. Ron, what do you mean by that? It's so vague. Here's what I mean. Recognize the rules that are set for you, that are standard. Remember, I talked about moral codes. And see whether or not they apply to you. A lot of these moral codes and ethical codes don't apply to you, don't make sense. If anything that you don't know why you know, is suspect. Have you ever asked yourself, why do I do these things in the way that was laid out for me? I've never questioned why we do those things. Why do we do those things? And why do I need to do them? Question everything. Have critical thinking. That is essentially what I talk about in my book, Relationships 101, on Amazon. Search Amazon Relationships 101, Ron John. I talked about the skill of critical thinking in your relationships, and I reason out how relationships have come to be. This is the most important critical thing when it comes to psychology and personal development and becoming a better person and making the world a better place for you and for others. Become a critical thinker. Think critically. Ask, why do we do the things that we do? I think this way is better. I'm going to do it in this way. Hey, it works. Now you can tell others because you have something called reasoned confidence. Number number 2, I want you to go ahead and communicate and contact and communicate with those people who you perceive you've wronged in your life. And you think you've wronged them, so you communicate with them and say, hey, how's it going? I just wanted to communicate with you that I've done something wrong or heinous or mildly wrong, mistaken in the past, and I just wanted to make it right, make things right. I was immature, or we were young, or it was way back then. Now I'm a completely different person, and I've wronged you, and I just wanted to ask for your apology, and I do apologize, and just want to put us on a better page, put us on a better path, and put us on a better relationship together as friends. You never need to feel shame, humiliation, or distress over something you feel you recognized is something, a wrongdoing that you take responsibility for. You recognize you've done something wrong. You communicate with them and apologize with them that you recognize you've done something wrong, that here are the things that you would do otherwise, so you would do from now on to fix that mistake. You never need to feel any shame, guilt, or embarrassment over it. Recognize you're guilty. You take responsibility over it. You recognize you've done something wrong, and then you move on with your life without feeling the distress from feeling shame or guilt. A lot of us grow up in societies where there are standard rules and ethical codes and moral codes in which we don't care to live by, and we don't know why we have these rules or ethical codes, and you have shame from thinking you've done something wrong, especially with relationships and sexuality. There's tremendous shame, and people grow up with tremendous shame in those areas, and relationships and sexuality. And so recognize, why do I feel shame? Do I need to be feeling shame? Why do I need to abandon my sense of self, my sense of personal power and sexual power, and for the sake of appeasing and fitting in with other people, or growing up, or settling down? I can do the things that I want, live by the rules that I've created for my life, and win the game of life. If you like this video, share this video with other people. You're making the world a better place by sharing these ideas. You're making other people's relationships better by sharing these ideas. And if you haven't already, subscribe to this channel. I do a live video training every day at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Leave a comment below. I would love to hear your thoughts. I'll talk to you in the next video. Bye-bye.